First and foremost, happy fight week. It is fight week for UFC 329, the return of the Mystic Mac, Conor McGregor, against Max Blessed Holloway, a UFC legend. I want to use this video to gather my thoughts. I usually give you guys a breakdown on Friday, but I want to do a full breakdown on the main event, Conor versus Max. Starting with the fact that I'm quite surprised about Max Holloway being the betting favorite. Ever since the fight was conceived, Max has been the favorite, betting wise, against Conor, and I'm utterly shocked. I'm shocked. I somewhat get it because, again, there's the factor of Conor's cage rust that has to be thought about. But I largely feel like, I don't know, like, do we not remember the beating Conor has put on many noteworthy fighters throughout his career? I get cage rust as a factor, but I'm unsure if Conor will succumb to that. I think certain fighters do, and it's understandable because they're away from the cage for so long. But I think Conor has remained somewhat active ever since he last left the cage. Of course, none of those feats of activity were anywhere close to actual UFC caliber fights, but he never stopped boxing. He never stopped any sort of activity, and I feel like that has to be considered. Max, on top of Max being the more active fighter in this fight as of late, you can also consider the fact that Max has been doing fairly well in his recent fights, with the exception of what happened between him and Ilia Topuria and what happened between him and Charles Oliveira. He has performed well in the fights previous to those. I would say that, he didn't really have too much of a bad performance against Charles Oliveira. Charles just utilized a style of fighting that Max doesn't really specialize in. And it was a style of fighting that wasn't really, it didn't really resonate toward the meaning of the BMF belt. Charles Oliveira fought in a way for that BMF title fight that was, I don't know what the right phrasing is, but it didn't really have anything to do with the BMF way, the BMF, for lack of a better term, mantra, which is, being that guy the UFC can count on time and time again to step in the octagon and put on a fan favorite fight that would intrinsically involve striking, which Charles Oliveira did not want to do against Max Holloway. Granted, it was a smart decision, because usually when you want to win a fight so desperately, you win it by all means necessary. Meaning, you win it by what you feel can get you the win. I wouldn't say the easiest, but in the most efficient and effective manner. And Charles did that. Charles grappled. He's one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners to ever step foot in the UFC's octagon, and he realized he was fighting a striker who has decent takedown defense, but doesn't specialize in grappling. So he used the grappling and he won the fight. Neither here nor there. That was more of me just talking about Max and what he's been doing lately. So Max is obviously the more active fighter, and that's why I feel like Vegas is largely favoriting him. And I just don't see that as a very viable reason for overly choosing Max Holloway to be the victor, because that's why Max is the favorite. A lot of people who are betting, a lot of betting men are betting on Max to beat Conor. And I just feel like when two of these guys are put next to each other and compared striking wise, Conor's just a better striker. Max has a lot of output. He's known for having some of the highest output ever in terms of punches thrown. But it's just, what really matters to me, at least, is the precision. Not really how much punches you're throwing out there, but how many punches are landing precisely at significant areas. Conor's a better striker at doing that. And that's why I can't really pick against Conor in this fight. I'm going to go with Conor. I've stuck with Conor ever since the fight was conceived, and I'll stick with the same method I believe Conor will win by, which is unanimous decision. I don't think Conor's going to knock Max out. I think it requires, I think knocking Max out requires a specific sort of unique power that only Ilia Topuria possesses, and Justin Gaethje to a certain effect. But Max, at UFC 300, Max utilized really, really great head movement to avoid the devastating power of Justin. But yeah, Conor's not going to knock Max out. Conor doesn't have that much power. Conor's more of a precise fighter, and that's why he was able to knock out so many other UFC legends, because he was able to place his punches so perfectly that, you know, his opponent had no choice but to go out, because they were right on the button, you know, right on the tip of the chin. Can Conor do that against Max? Obviously, but I even feel like if Conor was able to place punches right on the tip of Max's chin, Max won't go out. Max will, you know, stay stalwart, stay strong, and his chin will hold up throughout the entire fight. But that doesn't allow Max to avoid turning into a human punching bag throughout the entire fight. You know, again, Max has great head movement, but Conor is just otherworldly when it comes to his striking and his precision. And I feel like Conor's going to win almost every exchange. Max will try to, you know, get that output out there, try to throw big combinations. I just feel like Conor's movement is going to allow him to evade it consistently as well. So I feel like Conor is going to spend this fight just, you know, evading the peppering punches of Max Holloway and landing 2 or 3 of his own at a time that connect with such, again, grace and precision. And I'm not trying to overly glaze Conor McGregor, but I have this sense, I feel like he's going to return to the octagon looking like the Conor of old. He's not going to show cage rust. He's not going to, you know, be indecisive. The only reason why he's you know, trained and worked so hard to get clean enough to be back is because he misses the allure of the fans. So I don't think there's a pressure aspect for Conor. I feel like he just wants to be in the octagon once again, hearing the reaction from the fans, feeling that nostalgic aura, you know, when you step into the octagon. The same thing that Dustin Poirier has been recently missing, and what caused him to have that, you know, that drunken outbreak. But yeah, man, I feel like Conor is ready. He's dialed in, and I have no doubt that he will outpunch Max Holloway the same way he did in their first fight. And I love Max. I'm not saying Max is some scrub. I think Max will show up and he'll look good. Conor will just look better. And it is my absolute hope, as I've told you guys many times when I've talked about Conor versus Max, that Conor then decides to call out Islam Makhachev. It would be one of the best call-outs ever in the history of the UFC if Conor McGregor decides to call out Khabib Nurmagomedov's protege, Islam Makhachev. It will bring the story full circle between Conor and Khabib. It would create, I mean, one of the biggest fight buildups ever. And I think Dana would love it. I think the fans would love it. I think Conor would love it. I don't think Khabib would love it, because then, you know, Khabib would have to be in the face of Conor and around Conor for, you know, months leading up to the fight. And I think Khabib is pretty much done with that whole story arc. But I don't think the universe is done. I don't think the world is done with that story arc. It's the best, you know, fight game story arc ever. At least one of the best. And sure, I believe Islam would destroy Conor, you know, somewhat easily. But I still feel like Conor getting the chance to step up against, you know, Khabib 2.0 is enough. Not only for me, but for Conor fans as well. Because Conor fans can say, you know, Conor had the gall to stick with the beef and to bring the beef to, you know, Khabib's protege, Khabib's apprentice, you know, the new Khabib. So I think it would be cool. I think it would be cool. But I still think Conor would lose that fight. And overall, you know, Conor would still be winning, because Conor has proven that he can go through all these versions of, I don't know the right word. Conor can go through all the negativity and the white powder usage and the alcohol usage and and all the crazy stuff he's done outside of the octagon since he last left it, and come all the way back and look like a better fighter than he's ever been. Now, granted, I can't really consider myself a full Conor fan because of all the stuff he's gone through. The same way I can't consider myself a Jon Jones fan. Both of these fighters have gone through so many controversial, really bad things outside the octagon that pretty much eliminate the possibility for me to give my full support to them. But I still, what's the right word? Somewhat respect Conor and the feats he's done. Like, it's so hard to really show my excitement with Conor because, again, of all the stuff that he's done. But still, this will be a big fight. This will be a big return for the Mystic Mac. I'm excited. I feel like he will win this fight via decision, unanimous decision. I think him pretty much out-punching Max Holloway and pretty much out-kicking him as well throughout the entire fight will warrant a safe decision win for him over Max Holloway. One that will put him pretty much back on top of the UFC world, the MMA world, for a good couple of weeks, and allow him to, if he wants, go on a journey towards triple champ status that could very well end in him being the UFC GOAT. If Conor beats Islam Makhachev and takes his welterweight title away from him, he will become the #1 UFC fighter of all time, at least in my book, because he will then be the first UFC fighter to achieve triple champ status, something that Jon Jones has never done. And even though Jon Jones is undefeated, like the triple champ status is such a unbelievable feat to achieve, to accomplish, to beat, that, you know, Jon's record and his history and his legacy won't be enough to be bigger than that, in my opinion. So Conor has a chance. Conor has a chance to be the UFC GOAT. It's up to him whether or not he wants it. And again, this is all me talking or assuming that Conor will beat Max Holloway, which I believe he will. Despite what Vegas is saying, despite what many other UFC fans are saying, I do see that the Mystic Mac will return, if not at the same level he's always been, better than he's ever been. Overall, let me know what you think.